You're watching RAM TV 19, Student Television, a service of the Department of Mass Communications at Winston-Salem State University. On March 18, 2004, the Department of Mass Communications held its third annual Mass Communications Conference at Winston-Salem State University. The conference featured media professionals discussing current trends in mass communications. During lunch, there was a forum about careers in the media. The forum featured WRAL TV5 news reporter Valonda Calloway and Philadelphia Inquirer sports columnist Stephen A. Smith. Both speakers are graduates of the Mass Communications program at Winston-Salem State University.
I'm very honored today to welcome home one of our former Rams, and it always makes me proud to see someone who has graduated from Winston-Salem State return to the university and share their experiences with us, because I believe that's the best thing to do. We were speaking earlier, and she mentioned our motto again is enter to learn, depart to serve, and she is serving us today by coming back to us, Ms. Valonda Calloway, and speaking on behalf of her experiences in the work field. Ms. Valonda Calloway graduated in 1994, and she is a news reporter and anchor for WRAL in Raleigh. She began her career with Voice of America in Washington, D.C. She also worked part-time as a cheerleader for the Washington Redskins, and I do believe she was also a cheerleader here at Winston-Salem State University. Her next position took her to WNCT in Greenville, North Carolina, where she was part of the team that won numerous awards, including an Edward R. Murrow for coverage of the flooding after hurricane. So at this time, without further ado, I'd like to present to some and introduce to others Ms. Valonda Calloway and let her share her experiences as an alum and someone who has gone out to the work field and really made a difference and become a successful professional in the work field. So let's give her a round of applause, please.
Thank you, Mignon. Good afternoon. I know how we get after we have lunch, so I'm not going to take up too much of your time, but that was a pretty weak good afternoon. Good afternoon. I promise not to hold you too long. I just want to share a few things that I have learned along the way, some things that maybe you haven't thought about or haven't heard before. Can you give me an idea of who I'm talking to? Who's in the senior class out there? Okay, juniors, sophomores, freshmen? Is that one? Okay. So a little bit of everyone, so good. First, I want to talk about what you're doing while you're here and how it's going to impact you once you get out of here. I mean, being at an HBCU is a wonderful thing. For me, I didn't even consider anything else. But one thing I found that when I left here, it was like a culture shock. Being in the workplace, dealing with people from all over the world. As Mignon mentioned, I worked at the Voice of America. And the Voice of America is in Washington, D.C. And at the time that I was there, we broadcast in 56 different languages. So I was dealing with people from all over the world. And being in this little cocoon here at Winston-Salem State, it was an eye-opening experience. So I would encourage you to get out of this little cocoon and explore. See more of Winston-Salem, see more of the state, see more of the world, just to expand your horizons and be ready to deal with people from all over the world, because certainly once you get in the workplace, you will. You may not immediately, but eventually you'll come in contact with people from all over the place, and you want to be able to deal with them, relate with them, and have good experiences in the workplace. And also another reason to do that, to get out and explore and see more of the state, the country, the world, is so that, say if you want to be a news reporter or a news anchor or a writer, those things that I have done, you want to know what you're talking about. You want to know that it's Bogota, Colombia, not Bogota, as I recently heard someone say on the radio, and I thought, oh my gosh, how could she not know that? But those are the types of things that people who are not well-rounded, those are the types of mistakes they make. And people like me listen to that and lose confidence in people delivering the news who can't even pronounce properly the name of a capital city that's just south of us. Another thing I want to talk about is how decisions you make here in school are going to impact you once you're out. Things like credit, your driving record, things that don't really have anything to do with mass communications, but things that you definitely have to think about once you get in the workplace. How many of you know that a lot of employers check your credit? They do. A lot of employers check your driving record. I know someone very close to me who was denied a job because of his driving record. And those are silly little things that you don't want to let stand in the way of you getting that job that you want. Also, references. I know you'll put references down on your resume, people that you expect your employer to call, but did you know they'll look for people you didn't put down to call? My news director sent a note out to all the reporters at our station asking what we thought of a reporter at the competition, because his friend was a news director in Charlotte who was looking to hire this girl. So instead of calling the people on her list, he called his buddy, who's in turn asked us to give him the scoop on this girl at the other station. And I chose not to respond because, you know, how they say if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. But I could have really said some damaging things about her. And that's the type of thing that an employer will do. Also at my station, they will call the people on your list, but not exclusively. They'll call people who are not on the list. I used to work at WNCT in Greenville, and recently we hired an assignment editor from that station. So my news director came to me and said, who can we call besides the people he has here on his list? So they're always looking to find out more information, more than what you want them to see. So you want to make sure that you treat people well, treat your coworkers well, leave a good track record behind so that when they call those people you didn't put down, they can say good things about you. And you don't want to have to worry about a credit report or driver's license record. I mean, I know people right now who are in their 30s who are still struggling to buy a house because of credit problems that they accumulated while here at this university. So please, please, please keep an eye on those things and don't let those things get in the way of you achieving what you want to achieve. Another thing I want you to remember is never feel like you're the underdog or that you're less than because you went to an HBCU. Now, although our university may not be as well known or as mainstream as some of the other universities, the North Carolina State, University of North Carolina, Duke University, those names that you hear tossed around all the time, forget about that. Just work hard, treat people right, do your job. That's what's going to matter the most. It's not going to matter that not everyone in the world knows the name of your university. That's improving, although. But don't feel that just because that is the case that you can't get the job that you want. Set your sights on whatever it is that you want. I did, Stephen did, and I'm still not finished. I'm sure Stephen isn't finished either. So just continue to work hard and know that you're getting a quality education here, but if you feel like you don't have everything that you need, go get it. Whether it's an internship or 2 or 3 or 4. Even after I graduated, I did an internship while I was in school, and I did another one when I was out of school. And that internship turned into a first job at the Voice of America, a job that I really enjoyed, spent 5 years there. But the goal had always been to transition into TV. So while I was at the Voice of America, I worked part-time at a cable station, got some experience so that I would be ready for TV since it had been 5 years since I had been in it, and then got the job that I wanted. And I'm sure you've heard it's who you know instead of what you know often. That really, really is true. The first job that I had in television, again, was at WNCT. And turns out the news director, or the general manager there, used to be the general manager at the station where I did my internship when I was a junior here. So I basically called him up and said, hey, remember me? He's like, no. I said, well, I was an intern at WCTI when you were the general manager there. And he's like, oh, okay, send me your tape. The next day I had a phone call from the news director and had the job and worked there for 2.5 years. Again, at WRAL. Out on a story, met some of the reporters from WRAL, gave them my card, said, I want to give you a phone call and talk with you about the station. I want to be able to get a heads up about when jobs are coming available so that I can know about that. And it worked. It turns out, again, who I knew helped me get into the job that I have now. And I'm sure that it will work that way with the next job. So again, that's another good reason to build strong relationships and treat people right. And once you get out there in that job, come back here and talk to the students who come behind you. Give them some encouragement, give them some advice. That's, as Mignon said, what we're charged to do. That's what our motto states. That's what we should do. Stephen has been doing that. When I was, I think, a senior, he came back and spoke to a class I was in, one of Ms. Roseborough's classes, and introduced me to NABJ, the National Association of Black Journalists. I went to the first convention that summer and really learned a lot, but I was encouraged to do that, had the information to do that because an alum came back and gave me that information. So I encourage you all to come back and do that as well. Come back and give the students some encouragement, empower them, go out there and make a good mark so that the next Winston-Salem State grad who comes behind, that reputation has already been improved because of what you all have done. And we won't be fighting as hard for recognition. The more of us who go out there and do a good job and leave an impression on people, the better we're making it for those students who come behind us. So that's pretty much all I had to say. Hopefully we'll have some opportunity for question and answer after all this is over, but if not, then feel free to please approach me after we're done.
Thank you for those inspiring words. It is very important that we all remember to also go out and get our own internships. And she was explaining to me just a while ago how important it was for her to go outside of the university. Winston-Salem State provides a lot of opportunities for us, but we also do need to continue to search for our own in return. We also have another speaker for us this afternoon. This is Mr. Stephen A. Smith. He's from the Centennial Class of 1992. He is one of the elite core of African-American general sports columnists in the country. He has been a beat writer covering the Philadelphia 76ers, Temple University basketball and football, and college sports. He writes for the Philadelphia Inquirer and is a basketball analyst for ESPN. In the Philadelphia area, he can be seen on CN8 and Comcast Sportsnet. He is also a frequent commentator on Philadelphia radio programs and a much in-demand guest speaker. So we're very happy to have him here with us again today. He was a 2000 recipient of the Alumni Achiever Award for the College of Arts and Sciences. So please welcome me in introducing Mr. Stephen A. Smith.
Good afternoon. It's nice to know that Valonda, after all of these years, is still blessed with the eloquence and kindness. She's such a sweet young lady. Unfortunately, I wasn't blessed with those gifts. So forgive me if I sound a little bit direct. That's what I'm known for. Haven't changed after all these years, not about to start now. Understand something. As I'm looking at you all here today, it's real beautiful to see y'all. It's nice to know that everybody's paying attention and they're paying attention to their futures and they recognize that it's important to be here. I know the mass communications department is a hell of a lot bigger. So those that are not here, I hope they've got a game plan because apparently they think they can miss out on something that quite frankly they didn't need to miss out on. Understand something right now. As y'all sit here today, being a part of an historically black institution means absolutely nothing to corporate America. They don't give a damn about you. They don't give a damn about how you feel. They don't give a damn about much of anything other than benefiting off of anybody they can benefit off of. And as far as they're concerned, as you sit here as a class, as one unit today, as a collective unit, embracing one another, rooting for one another, once you step out into the real world, all of y'all are enemies because all of y'all can't have a job. Not the job you want. For anybody that walks into the Philadelphia Inquirer, the New York Daily News, ESPN, Fox, CNN, any local television station, any local radio station in the country, they can't hire everybody. They're interested in who best suits their needs. And if you can do it better than the person that you're sitting next to, you're the one that's going to get hired, and the person next to you is not. It is that simple. We can get into an abundance of things about what you need to do, but quite frankly, I get tired of all of that because I think it's gotten to the point where it's just so obvious. Y'all don't know that y'all supposed to work hard? I think y'all know that. Y'all don't know that y'all supposed to know how to read and write? I think y'all know that. Y'all don't know by now, after having Marilyn Roseborough and Dr. Sadler, some of y'all in here had Dr. Brookshaw. Lord knows what a nightmare he was. And I love him. I mean that affectionately. because I love him. I love him so much, I was proud to get a D from his class. That's the hardest class I've ever endured in my life. But what I got from Marilyn Roseborough, Dr. Sadler, Professor Brookshaw, and a host of other individuals here that taught us a thing or two was the importance of hardship, understanding it. See, I come back here 3 times a year. And every time I come back, what alarms me most is that I keep hearing the same old song and dance about what the issues are in our mass communications department. People not being focused, people not dedicating themselves, people not reaching out. See, Valonda here, she talked to y'all about what y'all need to do, and she didn't miss a beat. She was right on everything that she mentioned. The problem is, most of y'all haven't been listening. Now, I want you to imagine, I'm sure some of the professors here have told you a little bit about me. Forget what I've accomplished. Forget all of that for a second. Nobody was hungrier. Nobody. And the reason I can sit there and say that to you is because the highest writing position you can get in America is that of a general sports columnist. There are over 4,500 general sports columnists in America. Only 21 of us are black, and I'm one of them. The reason why that's such an accomplishment is because America doesn't want you, usually, as a black person, particularly as a young black man, to be in a position to express your opinion. Forget the title. It's the agenda behind it. How many people you know can go on the air and say how they feel? That's young and black, knowing the kind of experiences that we've endured being a part of this country. Doesn't happen. ESPN, worldwide leader in sports. I'm there. Took me years to get there. I was too controversial. They were too scared of me. Forget the accomplishment. It's the hunger behind it. If it fell in my lap, I wouldn't be here, because I would have no message to deliver. The fact of the matter is, I walked into Winston-Salem State University, and I instantly recognized that the odds were against me. I'm coming from an historically black institution. I understand that even though this is an exceptional mass communications department, everybody doesn't necessarily know about it or willing to give it the credit that it deserves. I understood, more importantly than anything else, that no matter what degree you get, BA, BS, whatever, all it means is that you are trainable. That's it. It's a piece of paper that says you can read, you can write, you can comprehend. You have a certain level of intellect about you that says these things. And therefore, we might be willing to give you a chance. Now, convince us why we should. That's all they're saying. My proudest moment, despite all that I've accomplished, was my first job. I got a job at the New York Daily News, number 7 paper in the country, as a high school reporter. How did that happen? I freelanced for them. 1 article turned into 3, 3 turned into 5, 5 turned into 7, because I had kept in touch with the sports editor while I was a clerk at the Greensboro News and Record. He knew me. He didn't know my name, he knew me. Because the previous Christmas when I went up there, I walked up to his office just to introduce myself, shake his hand, and let him know I would be sending him my clips. So I was no longer just a name or a piece of paper. I was Stephen. He knew who I was. And at the time that transpired, I had also competed for what you call a Met Pro internship program, where New York Newsday and the Los Angeles Times collaborated with one another to give 2-year internships in every little hick town you could imagine. And I beat out people from Yale, Harvard, UCLA, USC, Columbia School of Journalism in Missouri, Columbia University in New York City. I beat out everybody. I wasn't a better writer. I wasn't a better reporter. What happened is that while they were busy in school, like some of y'all in here, taking classes, getting decent grades, and thinking that that's all they needed to do, I had worked for the school newspaper. I had worked for the Winston-Salem Chronicle, then the Winston-Salem Journal, then the Greensboro News and Record, then the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I had over 250 published clips before I graduated. So by the time I marched down that aisle in 1992, I didn't have a resume. I had a portfolio. Y'all know the difference, don't y'all? How many of y'all got one? That's what I'm talking about. Those who raised their hands got my message from a year ago, and 6 months ago, and 2 years ago. Those of y'all that don't, obviously don't know me. Because that's what I've been saying. That's what I've been telling you. All a degree means is that you are trainable, especially when you're black. I'm not going to sit up here and come to you as a neutral party, acting like I don't know what it's like to be a black man. Are you crazy? Did you think I was going to do that? Y'all seen me on TV. I haven't shed my stripes. But I understood the challenge from day one. I listened to my professors, and I knew better. And what could repeatedly disgust me is that y'all know better. Some of y'all do something about it. Far too many of y'all don't. We can go into the 7 steps of journalism, and Lord knows what you're supposed to do. Y'all know. Y'all ain't retarded. Lazy? Now that's another question. You have to decide at some point in time when you're going to take it upon yourself to recognize your plight. You are students. That means you have nothing yet. If it's financial aid or your parents, one thing's for sure, y'all probably ain't paying for your own education. And those of you that are, more power to you, because you're different than most of us, because I certainly didn't do it. I still love big house games for that. But at the end of the day, that's the challenge. Because this umbrella, this protective umbrella, because make no mistake, that's what you're under when you're in school. Think about it. You don't even have to pay back your loans when you're in school. They let you graduate first. I know people that are students at the age of 40 so they can still avoid paying back their loans. It's an umbrella, a protective umbrella that shields you from the real world, but ultimately you get confronted with it. What are you going to do? I'm going to leave it to her to be nice. She's a sweetheart. She always has been. That ain't me. I have no time for that. I come to you and I tell you. The reason I tell you is because I don't want you to go up against me, because you will lose. Because I have what I need. If I stop today being ambitious and pursuing my goals, and I just did what I'm doing for the rest of my career, I'm on top. And I'm still hungrier than 99% of the people in this country. I haven't even gotten started yet. Do you see anything in my eyes that tells you I'm satisfied? I'm serious. I'm not. And I'm not playing. I will annihilate anybody that gets in my way. And I mean that sincerely, because it's a dog-eat-dog world. And I don't mean by stabbing somebody in the back or being unethical or amoral. I'm talking about working. I'm talking about understanding the level of competition that I'm faced with every day, night in and night out. This is what I'm going against. How many people don't want to jet set all over the country? I have to leave here early because a member of the Super Bowl champions wants to give me an exclusive interview. I'm supposed to be here at 3:30. I got to leave at 2:45. I got to catch a 4 o'clock plane to Fort Lauderdale. He called me. Everybody in the country trying to get that interview. I just sat down with Joe Dumars and Rasheed Wallace. I had to cancel an interview with LeBron James. I talk to Allen Iverson every day when he likes me. Michael Jordan isn't too fond of me because I got to call him out occasionally. Charles Barkley and I are cool. Mark McGuire doesn't like me too much, but Barry Bonds does. This is an ideal situation that I'm in. And I get to eat hot dogs and munch on pretzels, and I fly for free, I drive for free. I'm going all over the place, and I'm living the life. But you would never know it, looking at me or talking to me or whatever, because I'm always on the move. I don't love anybody at this university more than I love Marilyn Roseborough. Most people know. You want to get in contact with me, go through her, because I don't have time. Now, when she calls me, I know I better call. I better get back to her, because I don't want to get in trouble. You understand? But that's my girl, because she took care of me when I was here. That's what it's about. That's what she meant when she talked about giving back. But why give you anything if you're not going to make the most of it? Nobody's asking you to be her, me, or anybody else. We're asking you to be all you can be. I didn't change. It just so happens that the best of what I am, ESPN, Fox, CNN, Philadelphia Inquirer, happens to like. All I did was maximize my potential. That's it. The time for excuses are up. You have none. This is it. And if you don't care enough to maximize your opportunities, nobody's going to look out for you. They're going to leave you to hang and dry. Life is tough, but it's even tougher when you black and you come from an educational facility that evolves around this blackness. You don't embrace that, you wasting my time. But even worse than that, you wasting yours.
Let's give both of our speakers another round of applause, please.
You don't leave Winston-Salem State and become an anchor. It just doesn't work that way unless you're just the most dynamite anchor that ever walked the face of this earth. I mean, you usually have to start at a very small station making like $15,000 or some small amount of money, being a reporter, carrying your own gear, shooting your own photography, doing your editing, driving yourself around, schlepping batteries and tapes and all this stuff and still looking good at the same time. So usually you have to go through all that before you can become an anchor. At WNCT, I was a reporter, one-man band, working in a small bureau, making no money, living with my parents, and then I got an opportunity. Hey, Valonda, you ever thought about anchoring? Of course I've thought about anchoring. Are you going to give me a shot? So that's what turned into an anchor position, just getting an opportunity to fill in on a weekend. That turned into full-time Monday through Friday, morning and noon. So obstacles are great because everyone wants to be an anchor. I mean, there are far more applicants than there are jobs. The competition is fierce. So it's highly unlikely that you'll walk out of here and become an anchor anywhere. You'll probably have to, or I'm sure most likely have to report and then hope that you get an opportunity to fill in for somebody. And then that might turn into a full-time anchor gig, but expect it to be in a podunk town where you probably don't want to be. That's just how it works because there's so many people who want to be in this profession, especially sitting at the desk. So the competition will be great. So get a tape together if you don't have one together, refine it, get advice, get some people to look at it, just keep working at it. And then know that once you do get that opportunity, that the competition will continue to be great. I mean, the competition is great where I am. I have probably 3 women under me who want my job. So the competition is extremely tough. You'll still have to work hard as a reporter. You don't want to be known as an anchor who just reads. You'll want to continue to refine your craft, getting out there in the field and working hard. And understand that most of the time there's not going to be anybody to do your hair or do your makeup or pick out your clothes. You do all that yourself. I'm in the 29th market, and the markets, as you know, start at 1 and go to 200 something. But I still come in at 4 o'clock in the morning. I do my own hair, my own makeup. I pick out my own clothes. I do get a little help paying for the clothes, but not nearly enough. So just understand that a lot of those myths that you've heard, they're just that. They're just myths.
Well, first of all, the balancing act itself, I mean, it's that question is one of the most difficult questions I'm repeatedly faced with, because my entire career has been unorthodox in the sense that I got into television by accident. When I first got into television, actually, gentleman before asked me how did I get into print. Well, I was here on a basketball scholarship, and I went up for a dunk one day in practice, and I cracked my kneecap in half. So, I mean, I was walking with a limp for 2 years and couldn't play. And during that time, my mom came to me and said, well, what are you gonna do with your life? You know, you got good grades, what are you gonna do? And I just said, I want to be on television, you know? And she said, well, how are you gonna go about doing that? And as I spoke to some people, the perception, and I've learned now that if it was a reality, it certainly is not any longer, but the perception was you just looked at a camera and you smiled, and you read a teleprompter. And my whole thing was that, again, you know, that blackness issue comes into play. I was like, I'm not gonna last very long. I'm not the nicest guy in the world. I certainly don't walk around cheesing. It's hard for me to smile a lot. I'm not gonna lie, because it's just too many people in the world that get on my nerves, and I'm not interested in smiling all the time. But at the same time, I just said, well, if you write your own stuff, then that'll put you in a position to do something. And then Mr. John Gates, the editorial page editor at the Winston-Salem Journal, was my critical and persuasive writing teacher. He looked at me one day and he said, you're a sports writer. He read one of my essays. He said, you're a natural-born sports writer. Let's go out to lunch and talk about it. I went out to lunch with him, and it wasn't to dinner. It was to the Winston-Salem Journal. The sports editor of the Winston-Salem Journal was waiting for me. He met me. 5 minutes later, I had an internship, just like that. And you accumulate clips, and then obviously that led to my newspaper career. But to answer your question, what happened was that while I was a beat writer for the NBA lockout took place between the 1998-99 season. And there were like 12 major national stories going on with the NBA negotiating with its Players Association. And I broke 8 of those stories. I had sources on the executive committee, the negotiating committee, the league office. I had people giving me information left and right. So it literally got so bad, it got to the point where if somebody went to the bathroom, I knew about it. It was just that bad. I was just that locked in. And what happened is everybody in the country noticed it and asked me to come on TV to talk about whatever articles I wrote. So me thinking ahead, I said, well, you're not paying me. The least you could do is tape it and give me a copy. So I kept accumulating those tapes. I went to the NABJ conference, and I met a couple of agents there that had seen me on TV. They said, you got any tapes? And I said, yeah, here you go. And the next thing you know, one guy asked to represent me. He spoke to CNN about me, and that's how my career took off. So for me, the balancing, the way I'm able to balance everything, what led to all of this was reporting. I'm constantly digging for information. You know, a lot of people think I'm cool with the players and all that stuff. Yeah, I'm cool with some of them. But half of them don't like me. And good. I don't want to be liked by them. Because if you like me, there's something I'm not doing all the time. You know, I don't mind you liking me some days and being ticked off at me at another. My favorite moment was the lockout, because one day the league hated me, and you can't call the league office anymore. They blackballed me and tried to ostracize me. And the next day it was the Players Association. So I was like, I'm doing something right because I'm offending everybody. You understand? To me, journalism is about comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable. Because those that are comfortable usually get that way because they rode the backs of somebody else and stomped on the little guy. So when I have that kind of mentality and I'm focusing on my reporting, if I know how to write, then transferring that into television is a little bit easier. Now, she can speak to some of the technical things involved in television. I work in television every day. It's a shame, but I'm just too busy to be preoccupied with it. But I will openly admit to you, I don't know a portion of what she knows about television. Because I'm like, what do you need? I mean, it could be my boss. Yeah, hello, yeah. What do you need? All right, when? Okay, bye. Because he wants the information. The people that are anchors, they're still coming to me for that information, because if I don't give them the information, then what are they going to talk about? So my focus, my job is getting the info. And I sort of embellish it a little bit because I'm a very opinionated guy. So I don't just say, well, this is what, I remember one time I went on the air and Commissioner David Stern still won't speak to me for this. He's still furious. I said, this is the Players Association's position. This is the league's position. Now here's the truth. Both of them lying. And I said, why? And they're still ticked. And when my bosses called me, I placed the evidence before them. And I said, he said this, he said that, and he did everything but talk about my mama. But he didn't say I was wrong. So it's all about what your agenda is and what your goal is. If you're trying to be an anchor person and what have you, then you're talking about the technicalities of the industry itself. You gotta smile, you gotta know how to write, you've gotta have that energy level up, all of that stuff. But there's other things that she can expound upon. Me, the most important thing is to report and to write. And reporting comes first, because if you don't report, you have nothing to write about. And if you have nothing to write about or you have nothing to talk about, you're just talking to yourself.
We have time for a few more questions, one or two. Any more questions?
I thought I was supposed to be here until 2:30, 3 o'clock. I didn't know what to do.
I'm sorry. If not, let's give our panel a big hand again. Great job. Our next session will start at 1:30. So. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
I have a question. How come there was not more questions? You have an anchor person right here. And a reporter. You have somebody that's, I'm more visible than I want to be. How come we only got a handful of questions? Are you all not aspiring journalists or aspiring PR people? Are you not aspiring to be in an industry where your job is going to be asking questions? Why did we just get a handful of questions? Why? This is what I'm talking about. This is exactly what I'm talking about. I'm doing just fine, y'all. Y'all are the ones looking for something. There's no excuse for that. I'm sorry. That's funny, but it's true. To some degree, and I'm going to say this the best way I possibly can say it. Unless you an athlete that's making millions, an entertainer or something like that. That stuff usually doesn't work, contrary to what BET tells you. Everybody can't work for BET, and quite frankly, everybody shouldn't want to. That's just a fact. Image means a lot. And for those that say, I'm gonna be real, I'm gonna do what I wanna do, and all that nonsense, here's where you slip up. She will tell you, I will tell you, there isn't a grown-up, responsible adult that would disagree with this statement. Everybody conforms somehow. You don't have to sell your soul, but let me address your question even more directly. Of the 200+ million people in America, 12% are black, according to the latest statistics, which is about 6 months ago, so it could have changed, I don't know. It ain't that much different. It's 12%. Who's the rest of your audience? When you are a black man, you can't sit and say, the hell with everybody else, I'm gonna be real. Real or who? To the 12% that ain't trying to pay your bills, that ain't trying to embellish your lifestyle, that ain't trying to do anything for you. You're communicating to the masses, and you have an obligation to reach out somewhat. I mean, my goodness, when I'm talking, yeah, I'm a black man, and I guess I wear my blackness on my sleeve. But you understand what I'm saying. It's not as if I have an inability to articulate myself or my position or where I stand. But I dress like this because you know why? That's my job. One day I'm communicating with a little cat out in the street that's broke and they don't have anything going for himself. And an hour later, I could be up talking to a billionaire owner for the Philadelphia 76ers. I have an obligation to conduct myself in a professional manner, to be able to talk to anybody at any time. That's an obligation. I've always said this, and I've gotten to arguments with several players over this. You know, they talk about, well, Busta Rhymes. I remember, I'll never get this long as I live, and I always use this example. You can be whatever you want to be. Here's a man that's saying that. Check this out, Valonda. The man's got dreads on, a gold teeth in his mouth, wearing a red dress. This is a man. What job he in? Now he can do that because he Busta Rhymes. He can do that. Allen Iverson can have tattoos on every part of his body but his face. He got a new $104 million contract. He's doing just fine. What about the rest of y'all? And where they have a problem with me is when I bring up to them, when you talk about being a role model, I'm not saying that it's right that America should look at you and place that kind of onus, that kind of responsibility on your shoulders. But the fact is, it is there. You can't escape it. So what are you going to do about it? You have an obligation to embrace it if you're thinking about somebody other than yourself. If you recognize that you influence kids and what have you, what are you doing that's going to be conducive to them going out and getting a full-time job? Because chances are they can't play like you. They can't sing like you. They can't rap like you. They can't entertain like you. They got to go out there and bust their butt every day and work. So, Allen or anybody else, cats that I love, they cool with me. But how does this person have a better chance to succeed and achieve in society? Looking like you or looking like me? And if he looks like you, or he acts like you, or he follows you, isn't that an indictment against you? Because no matter how visible I am I more visible than you? Don't you have an obligation to reach out and touch the people that you're doing subliminally anyway? You know they watching. I might be almost as visible as him now. That wasn't the case 6 months ago. That wasn't the case a year ago. What were you doing? So everything is about how you carry yourself. Because when an employer comes to you and he hires you, and he's looking at your hairdo, or he's looking at how you dress or how you carry yourself, he's not necessarily saying he doesn't like you. He's saying, these are my consumers. This is what they like. They ain't gonna like that. He doesn't have a right to do that as your employer. He's trying to pay the bills. Just like you're trying to pay the bills. Did I answer your question? Well, it depends on what PR you're talking about. If you're talking about PR meaning your own firm, or you're talking about working for a team, what?
Working for a team also, or a PR firm that specializes in sports.
Well, first of all, this goes back again. Practical experience is what beats everything. A piece of paper is not going to get it. A degree is not going to get it if you don't know anybody, especially in PR more than anything else. It's about who you know.
That's why I'm trying to know you.
Well, that is not my field, PR, but again, I'm just telling you, I can definitely introduce you to people. That's a good answer. I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at you one bit. I don't blame you.
I talked to Ms. Rosenberg and I said I need to know him because I want to get to sports. And she said that you definitely do people behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
So the next 3 to 5, I'll give you my card.
Sure, but you also have to understand that in some circles, you may not want to let everybody know you know me. You understand? Because I'm the hitman. I'm the antithesis of PR. I despise PR because PR is about spinning. Nothing about it is truth. They want their definition of truth is whatever it is they want you to believe. And you also have to remember that when you're in PR, that's a conscious thing that you're going to have to deal with. If you're a PR person for a number of athletes in this world, your number one responsibility is to protect the assets of that particular team or that particular player. So if an individual is working, if your company represents him or the franchise that you work for represents him and he gets arrested, it might be your job to try and cover that up.
Well, that's what I want to do, so what steps should I take?
Yeah, okay. I would suggest number one, again, I talked about networking and what have you. Number 2, and more importantly, you need to try to familiarize yourself. First of all, pin down exactly what you want to do because that's going to be very important. And if you say, for example, if you want to work for the New York Knicks or you want to work for the New England Patriots or if you want to work for a franchise and organization, you need to reach out and touch somebody at those locations and get to know them ahead of time. They're not going to hire you out the door. And the hardest part of what you're asking me about is that some of the people that you want to work for are whose jobs you want. Which means they're not going to be very inclined to help you. That's why the networking comes in and so important. I'm not trying to minimize what you said. Anyway, you're absolutely right. All I'm saying is that it's not just about networking with me. You've got to network with those people, and you've got to network with people in that industry and hope that somebody will give you that chance, because it really does come down to hoping. It's all about that first chance. Once you're in the door and you show and prove, then it gets easier. But the hardest shot is that first shot because everybody sees you coming because they've got their own territory to protect. And that's what I'm saying. So you got to network, reach out to the team. Find out if you want to work for the Philadelphia 76ers. The name is Karen Frascona. She's the director for communications. Her boss is Dave Koski. Contact them. You want to work for the New York Knicks? His name is Joe Favorito. Contact him. But Joe Favorito just got that job. And he had got dismissed from Philadelphia years earlier before he went to work for the Tennis Association. So when you look at that situation, he's not going to be too inclined to help anybody right now because he's more interested in helping himself. That's the minefield that you have to work against, is what I'm saying. All right.
Well, as I said earlier, I'm certainly not finished. I'm still very hungry to achieve more and to continue to climb the ladder. As I mentioned, Raleigh, where I am now, is the 29th TV market. I would love to increase that, to be in the top 10 market. I used to live in Washington, D.C., loved it a lot, would love to go back there, continue reporting, continue anchoring. We'll see where it goes. That's a decision I'll have to make next year, but I certainly will continue to move up, and don't intend to sit back and be complacent and be happy with where I am now, because as we talked about, the competition continues to get stronger, not just with the people that are in your class right now, but when you get out of here, there are going to be people underneath you, people who have skills that you don't have. As you know, we're no longer the largest minority. You've got to compete with other minorities. So if you don't know some Spanish, learn some. There are so many other challenges that you will have to face. So you can't get complacent. You'll always need to continue to strive to do better and to get more knowledge and do whatever it takes, because the higher you go, the more difficult it becomes. So those are all things that I'm working on now to try to improve the package that I'm going to be selling so that I can move up in the ranks. So that's where I am.
Brian Gumble, HBO Real Sports. Ted Koppel, ABC News Nightline. Ed Bradley, 60 Minutes. That's my goal. Next 15 years.
Flip that around and say you're interested in reporting and anchoring, because as I explained earlier, it's a long road to becoming an anchor, because everybody wants to do it, and there are not enough jobs for everybody who wants to do it, and frankly, everyone who wants to do it shouldn't be doing it, because anchoring is not as easy as you think. I mean, people think that you just sit there and you smile and that's it, but there's so much more that goes into it. Not even I knew that. I anchor a 2-hour show on the weekend alone. Do you know how difficult it is to talk for 2 hours? To make people be interested in what you're trying to say, to keep your voice strong for 2 hours. That is a long time to just sit there and talk and look good and sound good and be interested in everything that you're delivering. And most shows have 2 anchors. I don't have the luxury of that. So there's so much that goes into it. But internships are the most important thing you can do, because as I have said and as Stephen has said, it's about who you know. You get in there in an internship, you work hard, and the news director notices you. That news director may be more inclined to hire you than a stranger who sends a tape in that they don't know. So internships are critical. Start at a small station. Where are you from? Go east, go to New Bern, go to Greenville, go to Washington. Those are small stations. Don't come to WREL. You'll get lost, you'll be running copies and doing stuff for people. That's not what you want. You want to go to a small station. When I say small, I mean 100 and up. Don't go to XII, don't go to GHP. Although you can learn some things there, those are great stations, they're still larger than where you need to be as a beginner to get the experience that you need. I interned at WCTI in New Bern, and that's market 105. And at that station, I was able to shoot. They let me have the camera. I did some shooting, I did some writing, I did some producing, I did it all. And they needed me. It was a small staff with a lot of overworked people. So having me there actually benefited them as much as it benefited me. And because it was a small place, I got to get my hands into everything. At a large station like my station, WREL, we don't even have interns. We have what are called news production assistants. Those are paid positions, and those people work. And if they want to get some experience getting in front of the camera, they have to come in on their off time and do that. They don't get the opportunity to do that because they have a job. So the best thing to do is to go to a small market and get your foot in the door and start calling early. Don't wait until May. Call in the wintertime. Call before everyone else calls, because when school gets out, everybody's going to be calling. So call early, get a relationship going with the news director or either an assignment editor or somebody in that type of position. Let them know what you want to do. And I'm sure they'll welcome you with open arms. They did that for me, and again, I did a second internship with the Voice of America, and that turned into a job. So internships are critical. And while I have the mic, we were talking about hair. And it's not just something that men need to be concerned about, women need to be concerned about that as well. As my news director told me, anything that's a distraction is out. So one of our anchors had hair down to here. She had to cut it up to here. Beautiful woman. I mean, she is drop dead gorgeous, ought to be on a runway. But her hair was distracting. She was so pretty. that you didn't pay attention to her. You were like, wow, look at her hair, and it's so bouncy, and wow, I wonder who she goes to. And you're like, oh, what was that story about? So anything that is too distracting is out. I've even had my news director to tell me to take off a necklace because it was distracting, or it made noise, or to take off a bracelet because it hit the desk and was a distraction. Anything that's a distraction is out. And I tell you, news directors and producers, they are on you all the time about things. And you would not believe the type of mail I get from viewers who will call up or write up and just give their opinion. I mean, one day a lady called me, she didn't like my haircut. Everybody else in the world loved my haircut, but she didn't like my haircut. And I just said, okay, thanks, have a good day. But people pay so much attention to what you wear, how you style your hair, whether you get color in it, whatever. So women have to be cognizant of that as well. So just remember, anything that's a distraction that will take the attention away from what your job is, which is, if you're in my job, to deliver the news, then you might want to rethink that. If your hair is short, Halle Berry style, Monday, and it's down here on Thursday, no, you can't do that. That's a distraction, because everyone knows your hair cannot grow that fast in a couple of days. And same thing with going from here to here. No, if you're blonde Monday, you can't be brunette Tuesday. You just can't do that. So women need to be concerned about that a lot as well.
You have been watching the luncheon address from the 2004 Mass Communications Conference at Winston-Salem State University. The Department of Mass Communications was founded in 1987 and features studies in radio, television, and news journalism. The department operates 3 media outlets, including 90.5 FM, WSNC listener-supported radio, the News Argus student newspaper, and RAM TV 19 student television. This has been a production of RAM TV 19 student television.